Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I like to say you're in the right place. You're at the Rapid Change Management webinar series, episode number 13. And I am Brennan German. I'm president of Bright Talent. I'll be your host and facilitator. And then we have Renee Maurer of Bright Talent, and she's our head of operations. She'll be our moderator today. She'll turn off her camera in a second, but she'll be the voice behind the scenes, because as we open up for Q&A, she will be the one asking the questions on your behalf. And then I'm excited to have Rochelle Snook of WD-40 join us about this very important topic. But before I properly introduce her, let me just kind of give some context to this webinar. So one of our core values is serving our community. And one of the ways that we do this is we have these webinars as part of the Rapid Change Management series. And we're just as curious as you all in terms of what is happening out there in the marketplace, how organizations are adopting change. And this is just one of those important topics that I guess we're all blessed to live in this lifetime that we're experiencing this, because people 20 years from now will be saying, how did you live without AI? Kind of the same people are saying, how did you live without, I did this the other day when I wanted to end a call, I did this. And the person didn't understand what I was saying. So, just the evolution of technology, and here we are going to be talking about this very important topic. So in terms of the format we have today, this is what I call a micro webinar. It's going to be 30 minutes in length. It's going to be concise, chock full of information. It's going to be podcast style. So we've got some preloaded questions, but really Rochelle and I are just going to have a conversation. So it's as if you're sitting in listening to us, and we'll probably fumble and stumble along, but that's the whole idea, is to make it real. And so we'll talk for about 20, 25 minutes, and then we'll open up Q&A for about 5 to 10. We have the Q&A feature on this webinar function turned on, so that as we're talking, if you have questions, enter that into the Q&A section. And Renee at the end, as I mentioned, will read those questions on your behalf. And also, we're recording this webinar. And so if you were to go to our website, brighttalent.com, go under resources, and then you'll see the webinar series. This is where you will find the recording of this if you'd like to rewatch it or share it with others. And then that's where we actually host all of our prior series and episodes as well. So we invite you back after this is done. So now let me properly introduce our guest. Rochelle, thank you so much for joining us. So this is Rochelle Snook, everybody. She is VP of Global Talent at WD-40 Company. She partners with leaders in 17 countries in the design and delivery of talent acquisition strategies and methodologies, strategic workforce planning, talent planning, organizational design, and employment branding in support of the company's strategic initiatives. In addition, Rochelle leads the company's inclusion and belonging efforts as part of her broader ESG program participation. So Rochelle, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Brennan. It's always great to be here. Appreciate the invitation.
Absolutely. So I just to kind of explain how I know Rochelle and how we're meeting. We are part of the same business forum, and we get the chance to really dive into each other's operations and hear about our successes, challenges. And I can tell you, Rochelle is one of these unique professionals. She is equally strategic as well as equally accomplished in being an operator in terms of actually executing. And so this is important for the context of this webinar. You might have heard us chit-chatting before. This is not theory, that hence the title. This is actual adoption in action into operations. And so as we talk about this topic, what we talk about is WD-40 executing AI on an enterprise level. So to set the table and to clarify, this conversation isn't about individuals using AI to work faster. It's about organizations redesigning work. It's a new SOP that integrates AI into the workflow. We're talking about AI changes to the workflow where AI is handling tasks in collaboration with employees, keeping that human in the loop, or autonomously in some cases, which also includes reporting, analysis, and also the suggestions on how to improve the process. So I just love what we're able to do with AI, and excited about the future, and excited to hear from you too. So to further kind of open this up, WD-40 is not just any company. It's a recognized organization that operates with a people-first approach. They consider themselves, I love this, a 73-year-old startup prioritizing innovation and learning. Their culture is legendary, validated by their engagement score, which are an amazing high 90th percentile, which if anyone understands engagement scores, that's upper quartile, that is high performing. And as an organization, they took an early approach to encourage their employees to use AI so they could teach the business where it's applicable. This obviously wasn't offered without guardrails. It led to significant findings, but also showed where adoption made sense. So, all of that to say, we have culminated into this moment in time, and the title of this webinar, Theory versus Practice, Lessons Learned from Enterprise AI Adoption thus far. So, Rochelle, we'll just open up with some questions. Thank you for sitting through that introduction. I just wanted to make sure we properly did that.
Thank you.
So maybe for those listening, what was the moment where AI moved from curiosity to strategic priority?
Great place to start. So our CEO, Steve Brass, has three main areas of focus in our strategy from a people-first perspective. One of them is learning, the other is innovation, and the third is tech savvy. So as an organization, we've prioritized those. So it's great to get the support from the C-suite, which it really gives us the focus that we need. We have a learning organization, and our ambition is to become a world-class learning organization. And that requires us to be engaging with new technologies, new tools, new processes, so that we can continue to make it better than it is today, which is our third value as a company, as an organization. Our innovation mindset, I love that you referenced that. Thanks, Brennan. We're a 52, 53-year-old startup.
Yeah.
We have to keep innovating, right? We can't rest on our laurels. We do have a big global brand, but let's keep pushing and challenging ourselves forward. We're also a really lean organization.
Right.
As you said, we've got 17, 18 offices around the world, but we're only just under 800 people. So we've never done a layoff in the company's history. We're looking at other ways to be more efficient so that we can automate those routine processes and our people can use their time to be doing higher order activities, problem solving, creativity, innovation. So when you think about all of that, AI is an enabler and we need to keep the people in the loop.
So I thank you for sharing that. And it is quite amazing how lean you run and how big that brand is, because it just feels so much larger. And that's just one of the impressive parts about WD-40. So moving into really, how do you collaborate then, right? We talk about innovation. Innovation requires collaboration. We're reading stories about HR and IT and L&D and such collaborating. We're actually reading stories about HR in some cases overseeing IT, which is a radical change. And I know that's not necessarily happening there or right for WD-40, but how are you collaborating as functions so there's not silos, so you could really cross reference one another and get this right?
Yeah. We're working through it. We've got areas where we've got best practice. I will start by saying this is a close collaboration, AI with IT, the technology and the people together, the human in the loop. We're not doing it in silos. We're connecting our people around the world primarily through our Microsoft stack, and having them with centralized repositories for their information, their work, their collaboration, and tech-enabled tools. But when it comes to AI, we're asking them to share best practices. So the marketing team, for example, will be sharing with one another globally. Well, how are they doing consumer insights? What might they be using AI for packaging on shelf to get immediate responses and engagement from avatars or from synthetic profiles in our customer space. So they're challenging one another, they're sharing best practices, they're uploading their case studies to a central location, and they're bringing it forward in their brand projects and team meetings and so on. So it really is top of mind.
And it feels like the employees are leading this, right? They're the ones that are really opening up the ideas of how to pilot, how to improve their own roles to use AI.
Yes. And we have micro nudges, what we call them.
Micro nudges.
Nudges.
I love
So
it.
We will, at the beginning of a one-on-one meeting with a manager, or we call them coaches, the nudge will be like, "Hey, how can we use AI to move this project forward?"
Mm,
As we're going into a team collaboration, using AI as a collaboration partner to think more creatively, more innovatively. We're putting it on our internal communications, best practices and case studies for AI. So we're just bringing it top of mind. We're taking a really strong build it, not blitz it approach.
okay.
And that's slow adoption, if you will. But what we're finding is people are talking about it in a really organic way. It can't just be leader led.
Yeah.
It's everybody needs a participation in the engagement, and we're getting great success.
So I love that. I want to carry that thought, but first, I'm sure some on the call, just like myself, are saying, "Okay, that sounds great, but what about security?" So,
Mm.
so many of these wonderful ideas can expose your systems and applications and things, and your back end, especially in terms of infrastructure. So, how have a lot of organizations stall there because of the concern about security? How have you managed through that to really advance?
The first thing that we did was we did a risk assessment. As an organization, what is our tolerance? And we don't have a lot of high intellectual property, right? We've got our secret formula, but
Right.
that's securely locked away. We're not working in, the biotech or the high tech space. So we looked at our risk tolerance to start with. And then we launched early on what we called AI exchanges. So globally, we'd invite people in our different trading blocks to come and join a virtual coffee chat. We shared with them what the policy was, and then we gave them demonstrations of the tools. Essentially, what we said is anything that's non-public information, put it in our closed AI copilot. If
Okay.
it's public information, or you want to do a test and learn or a creativity piece, feel free to use whatever AI tool was comfortable for you. And then at the same time, we published our policies and we gave people their reference point. What we discovered was people that were afraid to use the AI tool because they didn't want to disclose non-public information, whether it be data or our research
Sure.
insights or, some of our marketing plans or anything like that. So it was really inhibiting the people. And we gave them permission with the boundaries and the safety to do it. And we took a very adult approach. People don't want to put the company at risk, right?
Right.
And the good work that they're doing. And we found that people were more cautious because of it, but we also encouraged them to test and learn and play with the tools.
Uh, I think that's brilliant. And as you said, this is going to be contingent. No one size fits all. This will be contingent on each organization. Uh, but this is, I think, a very structured and way to manage this. And I love the fact that it really promotes the idea of usage and then the piloting. So let's talk about piloting. As that gained traction, what was the proof points? Like, how did you then set priorities of how you would take something from a pilot then to into the enterprise usage?
Hmm. We did it two ways, a top down and a bottom up. The top down was we created about a half a dozen enterprise-wide case studies that
Mm,
we rolled out across the organization with video content and then virtual coffee chats. Um, One of the ones I'll share with you is we found a quick win when it comes to expense reports. Nobody likes to spend their time doing expense reports.
right.
So we created a webinar where we demonstrated how to use AI more effectively with your expense reports. For us specifically, it was Concur. We also had some other use cases with marketing and with accounts payable and receivable. So we looked for those early wins where we could get adoption. And then we did a bottoms up approach. So we created a SharePoint site where people, as they were using AI, they uploaded their examples so that they could share them with the organization in a much more organic way. And then finally, we looked at the three different profiles of people that were using AI. And this we got from Deloitte. The profiles, as you alluded to earlier, Brennan, the early adopters,
Yeah.
the people that were highly engaged in using it for coding, and then all the folks in the middle. And what we realized is it wasn't a one size fits all. So we created the content based on those three different user profiles and we met them where they were to increase that adoption and engagement going forward.
You reminded me I didn't have this, but you shared this when we were talking about this topic. You gave me this idea. Is this augmenting or automating? I thought that was really important how you made the distinction about that as well. Can you talk about that? It's either automation or augmentation.
Yes. So automation, an early win for us was accounts payable and
Yeah,
receivable.
right,
We're,
right.
we're we're automating a lot of those matching of invoices with people and accounts and pushing it through our system. So we reduced the human touch for that piece to about 20% of all of our APAR that flows through. Only
Wow.
about 20% requires a human intervention. So that was tangible. It was an early win. The technology was already there
Yeah.
and we could measure that. And then where it's augmentation is where we can use it as a thought partner to expand our creativity, our problem solving, our ideas, and then bringing that into discussions, creativity, strategic planning, whatever the project may be.
So I think it's really important for everybody to hear that. So you were automating those things that we probably don't like to do anyways, and then augmenting the things that maybe requires our expertise, but it's enabling us to be better at our own jobs. So I love the distinguishment of that. Now let's talk about where did you start defining success? So it's great. You had this great program to really get going. How do you know when you're successful? Was it like capacity release? So freeing up hours of people to do more? Was it
Mhm.
ROI? What are some of these early indicators that things were going well?
I'll start by saying we're still working on it. There
Sure.
are some easy ways to measure, like with the accounts payable, receivable. But really, what we did is a cost benefit analysis. And I was speaking with my CIO about this yesterday. We start with what are the problems that we're trying to solve for? Was
Yeah.
it getting user insights from a marketing perspective? Was it figuring out how to engage with employees in different languages and using tools like Synthesia for language translation?
Mhm.
What are we trying to solve for it? And is there an AI use case for it? So starting there. Um, and then we figured out once the end state is in mind, we backed it in. Are we looking for productivity? Are we looking for employee engagement satisfaction? Are we looking for customer satisfaction? Are we automating our emails or branding campaigns where it's more efficient, more engaging for them? So we started there. Um, and then we looked at time saving. And something that I don't think a lot of organizations talk about is just because we're using AI to either automate or augment, we're saving time. So at the end of the day, people are working less hours with a higher productivity and
Yeah.
creativity and engagement outcome. And that's okay, especially for a lean organization like WD-40
Right.
Company. They can take that additional time, and what we're seeing is an increase in learning in other areas, an increase in creativity, problem solving, getting to our brand campaigns or whatever
Right.
the outcomes are faster. We're doing
So
more work with the same amount of resources.
leading to business outcomes, because ultimately that's what we want, right? We want improved business outcomes. what what is the influence of the board, or what does the board think of this? Because I'm sure they're watching this from a distance, but still very, very curious how this is operating and manifesting inside the company.
The board asked the same question you did, Brennan. How are we measuring it? What is the investment and what is the ROI on it? Because the tools and technology and the education is an investment. We're still working on that. The board will be looking to us in our March board meetings for what is the ROI? Where are we receiving creativity and productivity gains?
Yeah.
So that for us is really a working project, but they're a key stakeholder in this
Right.
discussion because they're looking at resources, right? How do we
Right.
moderate our people, department, and infrastructure resources? And by doing that with AI.
Yeah. And I like to think of it, this is all just one giant change management project, right? That goes into it. So what assumptions, so let's go to a little bit of lessons learned here. What assumptions about employee resistance turned out to be wrong? Or what assumptions about what could go wrong didn't, in terms of rolling this out?
One of the things our CIO shared with us is one of the assumptions we had is that our emerging leaders, early in career would be early adopters. And that wasn't the case. That was a surprise for us. If we look at folks mid to later career, we've been through, I'm speaking of me, that's a little older in
Me
career.
too.
We've been through the technology revolution, I'll call it,
Yes.
right? I remember getting my first laptop back in the
Yep.
day, or my first cell phone. So
Desktop.
it helped. That we found the earlier adopters are in that group of folks in that point in their career. So that was a surprise for us. We also learned that people were reluctant to engage with it because they didn't want to mess it up. They didn't want to break it.
Mm,
And then we also found that they didn't know how to use it. So
mm.
we gamified a lot of it early on to get people engaged with the tools. We had a game where we would use AI to create their version of brand internally with different avatars and games and creativity things. So that got a really high engagement. It got people into the tools. But before that, they were reluctant to do it. The other thing our CIO shared with me is that there are about 100 new AI tools released per day.
Yes.
And so
It's
we
crazy.
can't keep up with that support and the engagement. So we gave them a toolbox to use and test and learn rather than say, go and try any and all of them. So we gave them a starting place. And what we found from the measurement is the people that went there and started talking about it gained momentum, and then FOMO kicked in.
Yeah.
One example I'll share with you, somebody was looking to build an agenda for an upcoming meeting, and he typed into AI, hey, build an agenda for this next meeting, right? We've been talking about this topic for 3 or 4 months. And he was blown away by the agenda that Copilot produced for him. It would have taken him, what, half an hour, and he may not have captured all of those things that were in
Right.
there, but it's the it's the engagement and the sharing with one another that we under indexed on in that organic approach and discussion.
For my own personal use, and I could just magnify this right on enterprise, how the machine learning aspect, right? I understand it, but it's still amazing when it happens. It's like, wow, that's really good. And then all the time I just say, yeah, I see the application of that. So we've talked about how you went about doing this, and we've talked about it being a giant change management project and
Mm.
making sure there's reinforcement and opportunity. But what comes with that is learning. And you said one of the pillars is becoming a learning organization. And so adoption of AI goes hand in hand with learning and change management. At what moment did leadership realize AI adoption was actually a learning strategy challenge, let's say, than just like rolling out business process?
Um, it's the same. We found it to be the same. Any new process or any new policy or, any new skill that we're teaching the organization,
Yeah.
after a couple of learning moments, we caught ourselves and said, it's the same. We need to approach it in the same way. So, when we roll out new tools or processes, we have procedures, we've got policies, we've got in-person session, we've got virtual sessions, we've got micro learnings, just in time learning when it comes to brief content on SharePoint that people can access and learn. Because the other thing we also caught ourselves in was it's not a standalone learning opportunity. People learn in the flow of work.
Yes.
And when we're giving them those micro nudges at the beginning of a project to say, hey, can you use AI? We're asking them to pause to think about how to do it differently and how to adopt and learn with AI. So
Yeah.
and then the communication part of it, which isn't a one and done. Again, it's a build, not blitz, and over
Yeah.
time. Just like we would market any other new training program, we used our internal communications team to really help us with that.
So thank you for that. I really can see that clearly how that was rolled out. I feel like you already had an advantage, right? You're a people first organization. A lot of people are understanding innovation, but still, I feel like you still have to nudge. You still like that word. So, what mind shift still had to happen in the organization through this? Like, what did you see? And I understand you did all these reinforcements, but have you seen the normal adoption curve, kind of the laggers, kind of the middle, the front runners? Are
Mm.
you seeing it though in a sustainable way?
Um, yes, we are seeing engagement grow rapidly, and we're measuring that through our co-pilot usage.
Mm-hmm.
We do have our culture, I understand, it's a safe culture because we don't have layoffs. We've got high tenure, high engagement, 8 years average tenure. So we don't have some of the other concerns other organizations might have with AI is going to replace me. The messaging that we have implemented from the very beginning is the human in the loop. You mentioned that earlier,
Yeah,
Brennan.
so critical.
It's a procrastination partner, it's a thought partner, it's a collaborator. We're building AI agents to help it be a coaching partner when it comes to manager and employee conversations or skill building development when it comes to
Hmm.
sales. So it's a time saver, right? It saves time so that you can do some of these other things that you're really interested in. Or you know what? End your day at 5 o'clock instead of 5:30. That's okay too. Like there's some really good human-centered people first outcomes that we're focusing on.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me because when we were talking about this earlier, we talked about ROI and naturally we think of finance. Let me pause. We're going to be running longer, so just to let everybody know, and this is okay with Rochelle, just because this is such an important topic. So if you need to drop off at 9:30, that's fine. We're recording it. You can come back and watch the rest of it. Otherwise, I just invite the rest of you to stay. Hopefully, you could stay with us. But we talked about this earlier. ROI is not just finance, right? It's not just financial. ROI, that capacity release we talked about, to your just point right now, this person might have had to stay till 6 o'clock to do their job. Now they can leave at 5. That is ROI. That is still ROI. Maybe talk about that a little bit. I thought that was critical.
Yeah. And it's culture too, right?
Yeah.
We talk about work-life balance. Use AI to help us move the needle in that area. And that's
Yeah.
an important thing to talk about. So it's not just take, give, and do more with
Right.
AI.
Right.
You know what? Give back to yourself as well. And then also learning. Often in our surveys, we hear people don't have time to learn. So we're creating an opportunity for them to use AI and focus, what do you want to build? Where do you want to grow? How do you want to develop? And it's all part of the messaging.
For all of you listening, including myself, and you're thinking, wow, how do you get a 90th percentile engagement score? Right there. I think that's just so critical to truly demonstrate. I mean, a lot of people I think say they're people first, but this is truly executing at that level, which is very impressive. So from the whole learning aspect, what has surprised you about this?
Um, the surprise from learning has been that it's not one size fits all. Meeting people where they are and creating that safe space to test and learn. Um, and we're going to have learning moments. We call them learning moments, a failure that we can then share with others and pass that information forward. Um, the other learning I think has been we thought we would blitz it and everyone would be like, "Oh, this is great, best thing ever,"
Yeah,
but that's not the case. So the other thing is consistency, right? When we first launched the AI exchanges to get everyone excited and position the communication and the why and the
yeah,
use cases and the nudges, the consistency is important. The other thing is to build these micro AI squads around the business and have AI champions within each functional area, because that's really how we get the sustainability, the engagement, and scale.
right. So what mistakes or false starts can you share? Should organizations watch out for? I'm
Yes,
sure you made a list.
our CIO had a list. Yeah. Um, the first thing was cost. So don't over invest in the cost right at the beginning and blast everyone with, a paid co-pilot license. figure out what the engagement's going to be. Ask people to raise their hand if they want it, and if they did, great, give it to them. And then also ask them to feed back into how are they using it and feed into the use cases. The other thing was, let's see, what did he say? Go with short pilots, and build slowly. The other thing was use the embedded AI tools that come within your existing tech stack. Rather than, unless you're a really large organization, right? And you have an AI team and a development team that can work on Fabric and your agent development, use what's there and build from that place. You will find your really early adopters, which is for us a very small percentage of the organization at this point. It's about 5%. Most of them are in IT and marketing, where they want to over index. Support that too. And again, it comes back to meeting people where they are.
Thank you for that. And I mean, you've hit some gems here, like about the coaching, about the sales management, about the relationship between management and employees. I think we need I think we need a 2.0 session here so we can maybe dive in, if you're open to that, dive into some of these, because I'm sure there's some other questions. But I'm going to pause there. And now, unless, let me, before I pause, anything else you'd like to share that I didn't cover with anyone on the webinar here that maybe you feel is important?
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Brendan. Happy to take questions.
Okay. Okay. Renee, I think we're ready
Yes.
for Q&A. So hopefully we have some good ones.
Yeah, actually, I mean, Rochelle, you kind of answered a couple of them already, about success and what surprised you the most and such. But there is a couple of good questions. Um, what new skills will HR and talent teams need in
Mm,
leveraging AI?
Yeah. The skills for specifically HR, we're using it in talent acquisition. I shared with Brennan earlier, we record all of our first and second round interviews using our teams, and then we use Copilot to summarize the interview feedback. So the prompts that our TA team uses is summarize the response to the interview questions, identify strengths and risks or opportunities, and then we also use it to query from that point, create the next round of questions, right? Based on where the weaker areas or the risks or opportunities from the candidate's interview was, create me some questions that we can dive deeper in for next round. And then we pass those things forward to the panel or whoever's next in the process. We're also using it heavily in Workday for chat and automation. In other areas of HR, we're using it in learning a lot for creating learning content, or language translation, because that's a big need for us. We have 7 languages. We're also the agent development, which we're in our India team is working on right now. And you can also use external partners for this. We have some great recommendations where we're using as a coaching tool so that leaders can go in and practice and rehearse ways to have development conversations with their team members. And we're using the AI agent to point it to all of our existing resources internally. And then we have to train it a little bit. So it's a very important way for us to be able to scale this and have the tool on demand, so that coaches don't necessarily have to schedule time with HR to help them through or role play what these things might be or what some of the scenarios might be. It's not that we're ever not going to be available, of course, but it's just a great tool to help them get them started. Hope that answers the question.
That actually answered 2 questions. So, because the other one was really like, which tools are you actually using? So you mentioned Copilot and all of the stuff there. So that was great.
Yes.
Um, okay, so was there a moment where you thought that, wow, this is actually working? It's kind of a different question.
A moment that it's working. Yes, when we hear people talking about it in meetings, in hallways, we see it show up in our leadership communications. I used AI for this tool, or in specifically for role development or job description design. Claude is my favorite AI tool. I think it does an exceptional job there. But in short, we're hearing people talking about it. They're excited and they're like, hey, guess what I used AI for? Or have you tried this? And leaders at the beginning of meetings, we're encouraging them again with micro nudges to go, hey, has anyone used AI today? If so, share. How can we use it? Share back with our colleagues. What successes have you had? So it's starting the conversation and bringing it to awareness, and then it rolls from there. So for us, that's where we're seeing success.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I think that's it.
All
I
right.
said you
Well,
did a great job answering some of the other questions that I have, but
Thanks, Renee.
it's how thorough her answers were. So thank you so much. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Hopefully, each of you will take several nuggets away from this. And I know I did. Rochelle, you were so generous with your time and information. I'm grateful for you sitting in and being a part of this as well. Just so everybody knows, we're recording this. This will be put on our website under brighttalent.com resources, and then just click on the webinars link and you'll see the episode recorded there. And then look out in the future for other episodes when we will talk about other really relevant and important topics. So, Rochelle, again, thank you so much. Everybody have
Thank
a
you.
great day.
Thanks, Brandon, for paying it forward as you always do. We
Oh,
appreciate you.
thanks, Rochelle.
Take
All
care.
right.